And welcome to the premiere episode of the That Grumpy Old Guy's Homestead Chat. I guess I should introduce myself a little bit. My name is Shane Meikle, and I'm known as Grumpy. I have homesteaded for many years, and I am now not homesteading. I'm now back in town, but at the moment, but I intend to be back out homesteading here shortly. And today, joining me in studio is Frank Schwieger. He's the owner-operator of Camo Solar. And why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? You'll have to bear with us. It's the first time that I've live streamed, so just take me a second to... There you go. Why don't you say a little bit about yourself, Frank, and introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Well, thank you, Shane. It's been really nice to come here, and it's been good to set this up. We've had a few things to figure out. So I'm Frank with Camo Solar. I operate and manage Camo Solar, which is typically an off-grid company that does a lot of systems in very remote areas, and really get a kick out of it. I enjoy meeting lots of new people and helping them with their power needs and helping them achieve their goals. Thank you, Shane.
Okay, so why don't we just jump right into it, and we'll start talking a little bit about a few things off-grid. First thing that pops to mind is, as you and I have talked about this quite a bit over the last little bit here, is they have come a long way in the last, even the last 5 years. It used to be that you couldn't get anything that was half decent without it being set up for on-grid usage. Now, the problem with a lot of, like, let's take an on-grid stove. They're set up to have they don't have pilots anymore. The majority of them don't have pilots anymore. They have electronic starts. And they do not like even regular true sine wave inversion. They just don't like it. The top burners will go no problem. Here we got one company that is making the off-grid stuff, and it's actually really nice looking appliances. It's unique appliances, and they have back to the pilots again, and so they will work in any off-grid situation. They have propane fridges, they have 12-volt fridges, they have, you name it. Do you have anything that you can add to appliances? Like, I know that in your situation, they have, you have enough solar and enough battery storage that you are off-grid, but you still don't have to worry about these type of issues because you're producing enough that you can run an electric range, you can run an electric refrigerator, standard that aren't super efficient, and they would be fine on your system.
So I've definitely seen a lot of different systems, and meaning I've seen propane fridge, I've seen 12-volt fridge, 24 solar direct appliances like that. I've even seen some of the stoves that are actually, they had a couple D-size that you took and put in the bottom, and it would ignite it and make it go. So I've seen various things. Probably most of the systems that I've done, have the same fridge or the same stove that you buy at Home Depot, or Rona. But a lot, there's definitely cabins that still have old style stoves. There's definitely, cabins that don't have much for power at all. And I'd call them, your true off-grid, but there's a lot of homes that have the same appliances as everybody else that live in the city. It's just a matter of cost and more parts and pieces in that system, of course.
Yeah, it depends on how you're off grid. Like most of the time when we were off grid, it was a matter of taking and I don't know how you say it. I did it the hard way. I guess that's probably the easiest way to say it. And that is not necessarily the way you want to do it, but I didn't mind it. When I used to do, let's take how we got water, for example. I had a 12-volt system with a tank that would hold a week's worth of supply of water. Never suffered, so I used normal toilet, normal everything, and it pumped with 12-volt pumps. But to get it from there, I would kick the generator in and pump the water from the well to fill the tank. It was never a big deal. I ended up getting a battery from Frank, and that did make it a little bit easier. I had more stuff that was inverted, but overall I didn't mind it. So it depends on how much you want to be on grid, or not on grid, but how much you're willing to do yourself. That's probably the better way to put it. How much you're willing to do yourself. And it didn't bother me to do it. Now I couldn't do it. Now I want a system that is, I can just sit there and it takes over. You have anything further on that?
Well, it's definitely, it comes to the customer, it comes to the homeowner, or the cabin owner of what their property has and what it looks like. And then a lot of times too, it comes probably, there's two bases of that. One is cash. How much money does it take to put this together? The other one is some of these properties are very hard to get to, whether it's snowmobile or airplane, or you can drive your truck right to the door. I do a lot of systems that's, we'll call it, they have an outhouse and they carry water from somewhere because the only way there was by airplane, or the only way was there, maybe by snowmobile certain times of the year. So there's a bunch of variables that fall into it, and we always got to be considerate of that and understanding, what a customer has for parts and pieces they already have, so that when I come in, or there's a lot comes in, they're not changing. There's a bunch of variables that fall into it. We always got to update them to a certain system. So, brand new builds and old builds are totally different. Yeah.
Well, it also makes a difference. What you have access to, too.
That's right.
That makes a huge difference.
Like, one thing that always gets me is people go, I don't want to live off grid because I don't want to, have to go out to an outhouse. I don't want to have to carry water. I don't want to sleep in the barn, we'll call it. And there's no need for that. There's many systems that have really changed, and it's just like living in the city, just like your normal home you have now.
Well, if they're looking for off-grid appliances, there are many now options that weren't there a few years ago. That makes a big difference. But if you have a system that is designed and is efficient, you don't have to worry about going with special equipment. It does it. You act like it's normal. To me, the other way was normal, but I had all my computers and all of that stuff. I just looked for other options to power them rather than having to get a bunch of inverters.
Yeah.
So you can get I ran off of all laptops at that point, and the internet was all DC voltage, so you could get a converter to, instead of having to go through the plug-in and then it converts it, you just go directly from DC. Same with the laptops. You can get car kits that allow you to do it. Almost everything has an option. With our stove, I bought a brand new stove, not realizing that the glow plug in the oven will not work with inverted power, and so I just have to start the generator when I want it to run the oven. That part sucked. But you can get holiday trailer options. They make so much stuff for the RV market, and now they're making tons of stuff for the off-grid market, that your options, compared to me 15, 20 years ago, your options are unlimited now. And with the difference in efficiency of batteries, you don't even have the storage issues. Even if you're going lead acid to lead acid, they're much more efficient lead acid batteries nowadays than back in the day. One thing that I should clarify for everybody out there listening, Frank and I have known each other for many, many years. So it's not like he's just some guy off the street that I just met. We have known each other.
Well, and in that, talking about your stove that you had, and that's a sad story, and I'm sorry that kind of happened like that. But in that, understanding different parts, different equipment, through the community of like-minded people, or through the community of people that have found a tool, found a stove, found something that worked well for them, that they could tell others about it. I would say that's probably my largest business is finding equipment that I'm happy with, that's successful, that other people have, that they like and that is successful.
Yes, I found that as well. That
so and in that's probably how you and me probably know each other the best, is you found equipment that somebody had, or I found equipment that somebody had, and we talked about it and understood it, and then we were able to implement equipment like that.
Yeah, I agree. And back in the day, off-gridders were considered not the norm, but now it's way more acceptable. So the options available to you are way greater. Back in the day, it was basically, unless you were willing to spend, well, take a look at a solar panel compared to 10 years ago. The difference in the price and the efficiency of a solar panel. So back in the day, it was hugely a do-it-yourself, because you couldn't afford, unless you were a big company or very well off, you couldn't afford to get somebody to do it for you, because it was way outpriced.
Well, and to add to that too, I don't think, there was very few installers, there was very few electrical companies, there was very few wholesalers around. And they were doing their best, but that equipment wasn't readily available. It wasn't mainstream. And definitely, I know properties or people that have lived at their off-grid location for many years, and they have normal services like you, and some of them don't. They have their outhouse, they haul water, but they're happy people. Absolutely. And most of them have internet too.
Yeah, internet is almost a necessity anymore. You don't need a phone, landline, but you need the internet anymore.
You bet.
So we've discussed a little bit about off-grid appliances, and that the options are out there for you. One of the other things that Frank and I have been talking back and forth about, and I've been interested in for many, many years. I haven't gone and got one yet, but Frank is considering getting one, is a freeze dryer. And now, how handy is that for people out on a homestead? Freeze dryers, I'm hoping that they come down in the next few years in price, but there are more than one manufacturer, and for the most part, they're designed for laboratories and different items like that. But the one that specializes in making them for the home user is Harvest Right, and they've been around for 15, 20 years, but they're now come down a lot in price, and they are getting very much better. They are getting cost effective. You can get a pretty decent machine for a decent price now. And as you can see here, have deals going if you live in south of the line, and they have deals in Canada too. But you're going to be looking at anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000, depending on how big a unit you want to get. What were some of the things that you were looking at for convenience in the freeze dryer?
Well, and honestly, freeze drying, I'm still learning about it. I'm still trying to understand all there is about that. It's it's intriguing to me where it's not just a bag of frozen product in your deep freeze that everybody's shuffling back and forth, and finally the bag gets a hole in it, and then it gets moisture. That just freezer burn. Nothing makes me more angry than freezer burn. Or it's not a bunch of jars that's in your basement somewhere that's got peaches or something in it. It's interesting to me that it's just a different concept I never really thought of, but yet I've had freeze-dried food quite often, so I do understand what it's like or how to hydrate it. So honestly, I'm looking for the community to explain to me the different options. You and me kind of looked at Harvest Right. I know nothing about them. I'm not connected with them, but I'm looking at all my options to understand about stuff like that.
And just for the record, I'm not associated with them either. It's just that in the research that I've done, they seem to be the only one that makes a unit that's specifically for the home market. I would love if there were 5 or 6 manufacturers that you could choose from, but they seem to be the only one. You can go for one of the ones they will sell to the public of some of the other ones, but they were designed for laboratories or for commercial applications. So I can get ones that I can do 1,000 pounds at a time with it, but who wants to have to go that route? Whereas the Harvest Right is ready to go, plug it in, follow the directions, and I've been wanting to get one for 20 years. Now, as you've seen, I'm a big proponent of dehydration, period. But there's some foods that lose their quality when you dehydrate them. Some foods I think are better dehydrated than freeze-dried, and vice versa. So I think both have their place. The one advantage to freeze-drying that you don't have with dehydrating takes out about 80% of the moisture, whereas I think it's 98% of the moisture is gone from freeze drying. So your shelf life is technically a lot higher. So you can have, if you freeze dry something and you put it in a vacuum container, you have a shelf life for 25 to 30 years.
See, and that's something that's interesting to me. Like I'll say, there's many people that live off grid, meaning they have solar. And it's always a struggle to have enough power to last through the winter. But in the spring or throughout parts of summer, we have more than enough power. So if we can run, a dehydrator or a freeze dryer, something like that, we're really utilizing that extra sunshine that we have right now that's converted making electricity to run that freeze dryer. And sorry.
Yeah, let us be clear on one thing. We're talking about additional power. We're not talking about the sustainability power. We're talking about you always produce in the summertime a bonus amount of power. So you might as well put it at the peak time of harvest, put it towards putting food by.
Right, and it's, whether you planted your own food or you were at like I was just in your house here, and you had a bunch of mushrooms that you took and the store had them on sale because they were getting closer to their date, and there's nothing wrong with them. They just won't last another week. So there's different options like that people could use with vegetables and the like.
Yeah, that's one of the things I can a lot too, and that's one of the things that bugs me is the stores seem to think that people only can in the fall.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get all the supplies to
competition. Yeah.
During the winter and summer, it's always hard to get supplies. But if you have a freeze dryer, you throw it in there and away you go.
It's interesting. It is interesting. Yeah.
And I've tasted whole steaks that were freeze dried and then rehydrated. And once they're grilled, you really can't tell the difference. Now, there are things like cheese that you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a sauce when you rehydrate it.
Mm.
But there are a lot of things that are great in the dehydrator. It's great in the freeze dryer, and I think it's something that everybody should take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something to look at. But the problem is right now is that they're still out of a lot of people's price range. Like I said, I've been wanting one for years, but you're looking at. I would never go for the small one. I would probably go for the medium one, and you're looking at about $3,000,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big bite for the average homesteader. It will pay for itself in the future, but it's a lot of money for a lot of homesteaders to come up with at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're in the States, you have options because they have layaway program with Harvest Right, but I don't think anywhere else that they have that. So I think that covers the freeze dry. Like I said, you'll have to bear with us on this, folks. This is the first time and still getting everything, all the bugs worked out. So my transitions aren't quite up to snuff. That's why. Okay. Now we'll talk a little bit about livestock. And just let me get back to the main camera. There we go. And if you're just starting out, I've known a lot of homesteaders that the first thing that they want to do is get a cow or a larger animal. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I've had milk cows and I've had beef cows, and well, if you've got the room and the experience, they can be worth it. But if you're going to get a milk cow for the milk, be prepared, because you got to milk them early in the morning, you got to milk them at night, and they don't take a break because of you don't feel like going and doing it. So that is something to take into consideration. On one of my how-tos, I will actually show you how to make your own automatic milker, which makes things a lot simpler. It's actually easier than you think to make an automatic milker, especially if you have one of the handheld vacuum sealers. It's a piece of cake to do that. But I would recommend, if you are just starting out, especially if you weren't raised in the country, that you start with something like chickens or rabbits. Both are a great source of protein. Pound for pound, rabbits will give you more meat than a chicken will, but you don't get eggs from a rabbit, except at Easter. But
chocolate eggs?
Yeah, they're chocolate. They lay chocolate eggs at Easter. The other problem is you can get a condition if you're eating that as your only source of protein. Rabbits don't have enough fat on them. So you can actually starve to death eating to your full on rabbit if that's all that you're eating. But I never really had a problem with that because I have a lot of olive oil and things like that in my diet. And so you get a lot of the fat that you need from that. But pound for pound, the easiest to raise, I would say rabbits. And this is coming from somebody that used to own a hatchery. So chickens are great, but the learning curve is a lot less even on rabbits than it is on...
See, and I would go chicken, because if somebody leaves the door open, I can chase a chicken and catch them and put them back in the chicken house. Plus, quite often chickens want to go to bed at night, so that, if you just leave the door open, they'll head for the chicken house and go to bed. So that's a nice one. Rabbits, I can't run that fast. I'd need practice.
Yeah, well, that's not the only problem with rabbits. There is a problem. If they get loose, they breed like rabbits, and they are destructive when they are loose. They will see our wild we don't have actually rabbits here. We have hare. We call them a jackrabbit, but they're actually a hare. They're not a burrowing animal. They live on the surface, so they hide in thickets and things like that. But what we raise for meat rabbits are the European rabbit, and they are burrowers, and they will burrow everywhere, and they will be very destructive if you let them go. So in that aspect, you are 100% right. But that's why you make sure you have good cages before you start raising them. Because from an actual raising point of view, they're a little bit easier, because especially when they're young, because the mom will look after them when they're young, even though a broody hen will as well. But it's not as easy to chill the kits as it is the chicks. And as somebody who has raised chickens, you know that when they're little, they are so fragile that I'm not saying don't get them, because I think that they're great on any homestead. If I had to pick between the two, I think I'd start with rabbits, then move to or start with rabbits, move to chickens, or rather than go chickens, move to rabbits. It's just that it's a little less of a learning curve, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
So one question I don't know, because I've never done that, if I built a chicken house with, we're going to call it chicken penning on the floor also, can I put rabbits in with chickens? Like, I have no idea.
You know what? I've never actually researched that one myself. That's an interesting thing.
Like, I guess feeding them might be an issue, because chickens want to eat the rabbit food and on and on. I have no idea.
Yeah, I would think that if I was to do that, what I would do is I would take and build rabbit cages above the chickens in the hen house. They should do fine there, because they could feed out of their bunks, and then anything that they drop, the chickens will eat. Chickens will eat anything. Chickens will eat anything. They are... Anybody that thinks that they're a vegan, chicken is a vegan, hasn't watched chickens in real life. They will literally eat anything. If it ever breathed or grew, and sometimes even if it didn't, they will eat it. You know that.
Yeah, that may be a story for another time. Yeah.
Chickens are definitely... and they're cannibalistic in tight quarters. They're not so bad when they're out on pasture, but when they're in tight quarters, they can be very cannibalistic. Rabbits, worst you have to deal with is when you put the buck in with the doe for breeding purposes, you need to take him back out of the doe after they do their thing, or the doe will kill it. But other than that, they're fine. They're easy on that aspect.
Just picking back on chickens, there's two things about chickens that I always really liked, and one was, 9 o'clock rolls around, or whatever, it starts to get dusk. Chickens, if they're free outside, they head for the door of the chicken house and they all go to bed, just all on their own. Now, they probably don't, but they were trained that's where the food is and that's where it's safe. The other one about chickens is there's nothing more interesting, on a sunny day and they got their little dust pile and they get in there and they fluff and do their thing in the dust.
Yeah, I like fluff.
And then there's another chicken coming by and it's like, I want your dusty spot, and they're jamming beside them trying to get the comfy dusty spot. It's always fun.
Have you ever gone out to them when they're in the dust area and hypnotize them?
Not then, but...
Because they're so easy to hypnotize a chicken. You just have to lie them down and draw a straight line from their beak out.
Yeah.
And then slowly move your hand back, and until something disturbs their line of vision, they'll lie there. Whether it's an hour or 2 hours, they'll just lie there. Now, while we're on poultry... once you do get into chickens, you'll want to move into some of the other poultry as well. And that can be turkeys, ducks. I've raised lots of ducks, but I'll tell you, the only one that I would ever have again is Muscovies, because they act like a chicken. I don't like how messy a duck can be.
Yeah.
They are very messy, but Muscovies are a lot nicer. And the added advantage to a Muscovy is when you do dress them out, they don't have that oil film that other, because they're a duck, but they're not waterfowl. They're a tree duck,
Mm-hmm.
and so they don't need to have that insulating coat of that. How would you describe the oil that you get from a duck?
We mainly had Muscovies growing up, and I'm just going to say maybe there's some misconception that I have about them, so it may take a few more years before I ever have Muscovies again.
Well, I've had everything from Pekingans to I can't even think of half the breeds, but Muscovies were the only ones I really liked. But okay, so now that we've covered the basic introduction to homesteading stuff, and every week we'll have that first section. Now we'll get into why Frank is here, and he's here to talk to us a bit about solar, which he owns, Camel Solar. Here, Frank, give me a loonie.
It's my last one.
Okay, I just did that because now I can say I got my first paid promo. I'll tell you, Camel Solar is a good little company. They're there to help you. If you go check them out at www.camelsolar.com, you will find that they are willing to help you whether you want to buy a complete system from them or you are looking for information on something. Frank will help you out with that. And now I can say that was a paid promo. But now I will turn it over to Frank to tell him a little bit about the experience of solar, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his experience as well as his company.
So probably two steps in that. I'm going to say what probably bothers me about solar or about any industry, and that's, I'm going to call it this shiny, happy, smiley face that just sold you a product and says, hey, don't worry, you'll love it. And then when you have a problem, the owner of, the company will say to you, and I don't, whatever big box company or so that is, goes, read the manual. And then it's silent. And that's a sad thing. Okay, so, I have systems, I'm going to call it all over the place, quite a few in very remote areas. And I have solar myself. Now, I've spent a lot of money and time and effort in my own solar system. And I call it my own learning and testing grounds. Now, it's not testing, but I'm learning there. I'm living with it. I'm working with it. And I have many different parts in my system.
Most of you won't realize when he says he's got his own system, he should tell you how big a system that he's got.
So, yeah, tell you how big it is. The system, so there's that conception or trained, that's been instilled into us. If you live off grid or you have a solar system, you can't have a water well pump, you can't have a fridge, you can't have a deep freeze, or maybe you don't have an inside flush toilet. That's the craziest thing. Okay, I have all of those things, and many of my customers do too. In that, I was told that I can't have a hot tub. So I decided, let's do it. Let's find out why. Okay. And parts like that. So in that, if I sell you a system, I know its inner workings. I have the same ones. If you call me at, 9:00 at night, I hope you don't, or if you call me, I can stand in front of my system and go, hey, scroll down one notch, go into there, and we can talk it over at the same time. So we're working together to understand. And I call it an educated customer. Now, a lot of the systems I've sold are monitored. So my system is monitored. I can see it, right now remotely on my tablet or on my phone. So I can see that my system is working well. I can see the temperature of my house. And that's really important, is an educated customer, a system that works well, that has all the history and stuff in it. So I know when I sell a system, I'll call it Northern Canada, I already have systems up there. They're monitored. I know how much sunshine there was in February of 2019. And the same with this year too, so we can put the two systems side by side. But I'm going to say the one big step is I'm a solar company. I'm a solar installer that has solar on my own property. I live it. I understand it. I work with it. And definitely I'm learning new things all the time. There's new equipment, new parts, new pieces, and I have it. Therefore, I'm learning it first or learning it together with my customers. So my answer isn't to the customer, hey, open your manual and figure it out. At least we can work together and go, open your manual, go to page 23. We're kind of reading it together, and we're going to learn that step. So more or less, we're making a family, solar system that works together between my customers.
And that makes total sense. Now you have a very large solar arrays. How many watts do you have?
So I have a 19 kilowatt system. So that works out to 19,000 watts of solar. So this solar panel behind me is 315 watt. Okay, so 315 watt. I have enough that adds up to 19,000 watts.
It's a big array, believe me. I've seen it.
And this one here, we brought it into Shane's office for today. This is just a single-sided solar panel, so it makes the sun shines on this side only, and it's only making power on this side. Okay, that's great until winter, and there's snow on the front. Okay, so I have a lot of bifacials at my property also. That means when there's 3 inches of snow on the front, it doesn't make no power. But because the sun can shine on the backside from reflection off the trees, from reflection off the snow, it's making maybe 10%, maybe 30% off the back. And that's a big jump, from 0 to 30%. Now here's the interesting thing. A bifacial panel, I can't say it really doesn't matter what angle it is, but it definitely helps if it's pointing towards the sun. But just the fact that it's bifacial, making power on both sides, that's phenomenal. Okay, so when there's snow on the front, if it can make any power at all, it's going to make a little bit of heat. Okay, just from the sun shining, reflection onto the back. But if it can make a bit of heat, we'll say at -5, maybe -10, if that snow can melt off the front, we can make more power tomorrow. So then bifacials, right? I can make power sooner than my neighbors can that don't have them. And typically a lot of bifacials are 380 watt and then add the backside another 30%. I've seen bifacial make 510, 520 watts from adding the front value in the back on snow on the ground, reflection, and a sunny day.
Well, that makes sense.
It's truly amazing. It really is. And here's the sad thing about that. I've sold many bifacial panels, and finally in these last 2 years, I finally put some at my own property, and then was able to see the gains that my customers were getting.
Well, that solar is great, and when I go back off grid again, I definitely will have. We've already talked about what I want to put in. I hate being back on grid, believe me. After all of these years of being off grid, I absolutely hate being back on grid.
Now one thing I hugely want to say, okay? I can build a solar system. I can build it to the best of my ability. We can do all that. But still, there is parts and things that can happen. Whether the environment caused something strange, whether that's snow and ice or something like that, or maybe the neighbor came over as a joke and April Fools and turned your power off. In that, it's super important that I can work with the homeowner, work with the customer, and go, hi, this is a really nice system. And I know this is a bad word, but how can we wreck it? Now, wreck it is something as simple as the breaker tripped, or there's ice on it, or the generator won't start because the fuel is gone because, your neighbor needed fuel and he took yours. I don't know. But in that, if I can load your system, cause it to shut down, fail, because it ran out of battery power, the sun didn't shine, and then work with the customer, okay, how do we bring it back to life? How do we work with that? And as I always say to people, I don't live with you. When you're cooking turkey dinner and your neighbors are over and you're all happy and the lights go off, what are you going to do to bring it back to life? Is it as easy as looking to see where the breakers are? Is it as easy as starting the generator? How is that process going to be? So if you have an educated customer that understands those things, I can take pictures, I can save them, and on, but you're the one that's living with your system. So when I go to somebody's place, I'm going to call it remote. When I come into their house, we'll say the flashlight is, sitting on the kitchen table. That's an awesome customer because they found a way to solve their problem, right? They need to go out to the outhouse or go check their cows or start their generator, and they're prepared. Prepared is what's getting it through this. If you think that you're going to buy a system from somebody and it just works forever and it's 100% and it will never, never, never fail, things happen.
That's why you need backups upon backups.
Right, whether it's the wind blew a tree over or it's ice and snow on top of the panels or your neighbor snuck over and tripped a breaker for you just to prove a point.
Or you have a battery fail.
Yeah.
That can happen. Even with the most expensive batteries.
Yes.
That can happen, that you can have something go wrong.
So in that, and I say it over and over, an educated customer is a good customer. Somebody that understands that, hey, today's a really sunny day. Let's wash the car. Let's wash laundry. Let's water the apple trees. Let's do all these things. And then tomorrow you wake up and tomorrow the sun isn't shining and it's a dull, gloomy day. Maybe that's a good day to, and I'm saying this from experience. Maybe today's a good day to, bake bread. Something that warms the house up, adds value to your life, and isn't using, a lot of electricity.
And like we were talking, it's very important that you have something like a cogeneration system in place. Why don't you tell a little bit about what your cogeneration system?
So cogeneration, or CHP. CHP stands for complete heat and power. So you have a generator. In my case, it's a diesel generator. It's a very small one. When the generator runs, I'm collecting the heat from the exhaust. So the exhaust is going through a double pipe system, honestly. It's a heat exchanger, and it's heating glycol that then comes into the house. The antifreeze from the block that would normally go through the radiator and just blow outside is also coming into the house also. So that helps heat my domestic water for washing laundry or dishes. It also helps heat my house, and it also, heats my hot tub. So in that, an engine running, generating power.
It's also generating power.
Yeah.
That if you didn't have sunlight, it could help charge your batteries.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to build a system that the generator is going to run, a huge amount of hours every month. We're not going to start the generator just because we want heat in the house or such. It's just an added value to that. And hopefully we can build a system that only runs, whether that's 100 hours a year or 200-300 hours per year. It will happen. And typically when generator runs, it's going to be because it wasn't a sunny day, so therefore it's cold and gloomy, whether it's rainy or snowy and cold. So CHP, complete heat and power. We're collecting heat off the engine to help heat the house, help heat your shop, or help heat domestic water.
And like your system doesn't need to come on that much, so you actually even have a wood burner in your house to assist with the heat as well.
Yeah, it helps keep you fit. Splitting wood, hauling wood. Yeah. So, and sometimes I come across, an elderly person that, they're retired in town and they buy their property out in the country and they go, hey, I'm going to put in a wood heater and I'm going to heat my house with wood. And I go, well, do you have a backup plan? They go, well, no, I'm going to heat with wood. And how do you say to them carefully, do you want a job? Why not have a small propane heater that when you go to the city and you don't make it back in time because you're visiting family, that the propane heater would keep your house warm so you don't have to rush home, light the fire, warm the house back up. So, different.
I'm a strong believer that no matter whether it's solar as your primary and the CHP system as your backup, you need a backup upon a backup upon a backup. So that, as Frank was saying, when one thing goes wrong, there's always a redundant system to take over.
And a redundant system, and sometimes them are automated. Sometimes it means, you go out with a jerry can, you put gas in a faithful Honda or some other style of generator, you pull the cord, and it's happily running, and you save the day. Maybe it just means that you went out, your redundant system is, it froze tonight, you took an axe and you chopped the water, for the cattle to drink. That's your backup plan, whatever that is. To imagine that it's never going to snow tonight.
But just the way I look at it is, you think about what could go wrong,
Yes.
and try to mitigate those things. So if your solar system can't get sunlight and you can't get your CHP system started,
Yeah.
what are your options? And the more options you have, the better, the less chance that you will find yourself in a miserable situation.
So in that, and I want to be careful. We're not running away. Hi, your system's going to fail. You're going to freeze to death. No, I don't.
No.
I don't want to say that at all, because here's what happens. A lot of times, people are designing their solar system to work, in December and January when the hours of sunlight is low and the generator runs to bring the batteries back up and everything's great. Well, now all of a sudden February rolls around, March, April, and you have lots of sunshine and you don't have a lot of use. Now, if it was June or August, you could water the garden, you could water the apple trees and try to use some of that energy. So I have a lot of properties, or customers, that I've helped. And when the batteries are full, another load turns on. So a few years back, you called that a dump load. Now, I call it make solar sexy because it just makes sense. So in that, it knows the batteries are full, turns on a dump load, which is electric hot water. Or something like that. So you come home from work, the electric hot water heaters warm the water up for free. Propane didn't do it. The electric sun did it. So you stored energy. Instead of storing it to a battery, you stored it to a tank of water. You have a shower that night, you wash some laundry or wash the dishes. In the morning you get up, it's not hot, but it's still kind of warm. So that added value. Now at my property, at my place, I have a propane hot water heater. And ahead of it, so my water well pumps water out of the ground, goes through an electric hot water heater, and then to the propane one. So if I have a good sunny day, I have pre-warmed hot water that then when it leaves and goes into the propane one, it's already warmed up.
And it doesn't kick the propane
That's
in
right.
so that you have to pay. Yeah, I wasn't hinting that the solar, any good design system, whether it's wind, solar,
Yes.
you don't plan on it failing, but you're prepared in case something
Absolutely.
happens, because life happens. That's what I was getting at with being prepared with redundant systems.
So and interesting with that is, so now all of a sudden you got a solar system that's close to work in that January, February, but still doesn't. Once in a while the generator does have to kick in to charge your batteries to bring your house back up, so you can use power. And then you get some good sunny days. And I think people don't understand, the colder it is, the more power a solar panel makes. Okay, so minus 30, minus 40, this panel will produce a tiny bit more than it will in June or July. Now, the other one is, it's really interesting, June or July, and I call it combine dust. I don't have a clue what it is. There's dust in the air. Everybody thinks I'm going to make an insane amount of power on a hot sunny day. Not true. Okay.
You get a film on your panels.
You got a film on your panels. There's a film in the sky. Whether that's pollen or moisture or dust, I don't have a clue. I just know that February, March, April, we make huge power on solar panels. So what can we do with that power? Like soon as the batteries are full, they back off. So it's safe, it's fine, but we got all that energy that could be used for something else. So whether that's a baseboard heater, a freeze dryer, watering the cows, what can we do with that extra power? That's the interesting thing. And then, once a homeowner understands, there's definite days I don't have enough, and there's definite days I've got so much power. What can I do with it? Right? And the cool news is a lot of times we got so much power, it goes 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then all of a sudden, snowy dark. So maybe all that is a timer that's on your generator that warmed, the engine block up. Maybe all it was that electric hot water heater. right? And and I brought one with me. So this is just a small solar charge control. So this is an MPPT, okay? And it's, you take and you hook the batteries up to here, you hook your solar up there, but out here it has a dump load. And that's exactly that. We'd hook a relay to that, which would then turn on an electric hot water heater or some other option. Yeah.
You could do any number of things with that. And it just means it's not wasted power.
Absolutely.
You could actually run it to another one and have a backup battery bank if you wanted to. There's any number of things that you can do with it.
A lot of cases, we'll just install a plug-in on the wall, and it only turns on when the batteries are full. So whether that's just a baseboard heater that's, or a store-bought electric heater that's plugged into it, batteries are full, it turns on. Welcome to Canada. Yeah, it's cold.
It's and you need to be prepared, because with the backups, if life happens, it is cold in the wintertime here, and you don't want to be left holding the bag. That's the main thing. If you're in a warmer climate and you have something that fails, you have a lot more options. Here, if something fails and you don't have a backup for it, you're miserable.
Yeah, life here is kind of, I'm going to call it unforgiving, but you have to get creative. There's many generators, and sorry I'm picking on generators right now. There's many generators that have, an outside weather kit, and they can sit, as I call it, in a snowbank up against the willow bush. And I'm so happy when a customer puts it inside of a garden shed, or even just a calf shed, just a roof and 3 walls. So there it is. So you can change the oil on it. You can work on it. You can go in and inspect it during a rainy or snowy day. I don't have to take a shovel.
I'm one of those that's outside at the moment. It will be inside shortly, but it's sitting outside at the moment.
Like, it don't need to be in a heated shed, but it's sure nice when they are. Just give it a roof.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I agree. It's just I had no spot to put it at the moment.
Yeah. And it's always my pet peeve. I go into somebody's mechanical room, and the mechanical room doesn't have a light, or it's got one light, and there's a chimney and a duct and a wall and some boards, and that light, you know what I mean? You got to bring your own lights to work in homeowners' mechanical rooms. And same with their generator room. Put a couple lights in there. Makes everybody's life easier.
And if it was me doing it, I'd have both AC and DC lights in there.
Yes, absolutely. Because then you're a prepared customer. You thought about things. What's it going to cost you? Whether you go to Harbor Freight or you go to, some other little corner store, bumper to bumper, and you bought, a 12-volt light of some sort and a switch. At least when the generator's not running and the power's off, you just came from the city. You've shut the system down. This is your first time back in a few months. You got there on your snowmobile or your skis. You can wake it back up, and away you go.
Yeah, that makes entire sense. Is there anything else you want to add with what we're going to do is about once a month, Frank will come in and we'll discuss different aspects of an off-grid system in more detail each episode. Right now, I think he's getting you a battery to see.
So one thing that's really changed, and I see I got one question about the difference between lithium batteries. Lithium has been around a long time. It's been in our phones. It's been in our cordless drills. There's many places where lithium's starting to go where we never thought of before. This here, this is a lithium battery from Trojan. Okay, so it's a Trojan Trillium battery. Now, this is the size that you could put in your camper or your RV. But I have many cabins that has this too. So this is a group 27, sorry. It's a group 27, so it's car battery size. It's a 12 volt. Now the interesting thing with lithium is it can live quite a bit of its life, whether that's at 5% state of charge or 40% state of charge. So you don't need to worry about fully charging it once every 4 days. It could last, we'll say, 10 days before you fully charged it. Where lead acid, when you bring it down, you need to charge it back up, within a matter of days. And if you don't, you degrade that battery quite a bit. Lithium doesn't care. Now, definitely, we need to bring it up, whether that's every 10 days, maybe that's every 20 days. There's many different lithium battery manufacturers. Now, the other thing that's interesting, a lead acid battery, say the one in your holiday trailer, the one in your camper, that battery should be sized that you're only using 50% of the battery. Okay, so you didn't bring it down to the lights turned off.
No,
you didn't
that kills the battery.
You didn't kill it, yeah. So a lithium, we can bring it just about all the way down. It can be brought down to 5%, maybe 10% every day. Now, it shortens its life from 10,000 cycles maybe down to 6,000 cycles. There's different lithium battery manufacturers. Some can only take 5,000 cycles, okay? So we always got to watch, good brand name lithium manufacturers or ones that's been tested. And when I say tested, I really like the community of off-grid people, and I can reach out to them and go, hey, have you ever heard of this battery manufacturer? Yeah, I got that in my basement. Works really good. How does it work? How do you feel about it? How long have you had it? To me, that is an awesome advertisement. Being able to talk to others that have something, go, hey man, buy it. It's a good thing. It works. I've got it in my holiday trailer, and it works well. So, it's hard to kind of hold here in front of the camera, but this battery, okay, and I know you can't quite see it, there's a button on there. When I push that button, there's a little yellow light that comes on, so it's telling me what its state of charge is.
And the amount of flashes, or the color tells you.
Yeah, the color. Now, the other thing that's interesting, let's say that it's in my holiday trailer and I want to work on the power system. I can push that button, hold it, and it will turn the power off. So now I can work on the wire safely, and I don't have to worry about there being any power. Now, we should always check with a voltage meter to double check to make sure that there is no power there when we're trying to work on fuses and wiring or replacing or changing things. Definitely, right? Mm-hmm. So lithium is very interesting. It doesn't weigh as much. We can utilize the power, the energy from 100% all the way down. Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10. There's different manufacturers, and we can double them up and add them. So, just lithium alone has made my life so much easier.
And in the next few years, they're coming out with so many other kinds of batteries that.
I don't have one here today. I've seen them in properties where I can take my phone and go on Bluetooth and see the history on the battery, see the voltage. So you're sitting on your chair in your holiday trailer, you can go, hey, I got lots of power, let's run the microwave. That's pretty interesting. That's an educated customer.
Yeah, it's getting more and more. When they come out with the solid state batteries, that's going to be a game changer too. So.
It'll be interesting. Yes. And same, so let's pretend solid state came out with an awesome battery tomorrow, right?
I don't think it'd be quite that simple.
No. And even if they did, I'd want to talk to customers that already have one, whether I got to contact somebody in the US or somewhere and go, hey, what do you think of it? Is this something that you think I should be selling to my people also? Or should I buy one first and test it and learn it? That's a big thing, is being, I'm looking at the freeze dryer, right? And I talked to you about that. I'm looking at, buying or the idea of a freeze dryer, but talk to customers that have them and go, hey, what do you think? Does this make good sense? How did it work for you? That's the community of people that's learning about things.
Yeah, and it's not just the off-grid, it's the homesteading community
yes.
in general. And it's had a huge upflux in the last year even. We all know why that is. We won't talk about it. But it's becoming more and more prevalent. Back even 10 years ago, it was kind of, people would look at you strange when you said, oh, I'm a homesteader, or I prep. They all, as soon as you say that you prep, they would look at you like you were a doomsday prepper, that you were waiting for the zombie apocalypse. But now people get it a little bit more.
Well, and even, okay, so I'll say prepper. Let's build an idea. Let's say a homeowner in the city, okay? And all they want is a little bit of battery storage. Maybe they want solar panels. I don't know. So in case the power went off, their deep freeze stayed cold. Let's say they live in the country and they have a basement and they have a what do you call that, where the weeping tile and the water from the ground tries to seep into their basement and make things wet inside their house. And they have a pump for that. Maybe all it is, that little bit of battery storage, they could turn that pump on so they know their basement doesn't flood. Okay, so I call that protecting, your investment. Your deep freeze, maybe it's got that prize elk in it. Maybe it's got a whole bunch of frozen strawberries. There's a value in that.
Well, even take a look at it from the fact that you put that elk into the freezer in the first place.
Yeah.
And we live in Canada, and you can get snowed in.
Yeah.
What if you can't get to the store for 4 or 5 days?
Yeah.
It's good to have a supply. Or you could get to the store. Most of us will drive in a blizzard like you would believe, but if you don't have to go out, why? If you've got the food in the house, there's no reason to go out into a blizzard to make your way to the store. That's the type of prepping that I am. Or the fact that you're growing all this stuff during the summertime, but in the wintertime you don't. So you're putting it, freeze dryer is perfect for that. You get it all, you've got it, and you've got it for the winter.
So, and one thing I want to say about that, let's say, that customer in the city, or that customer in the country, either one, and they don't have the money to buy a $50,000 or $100,000 solar system. They have $10,000 or they have $5,000, and all they want to do is stop that flood water that could come in the basement. Maybe all they want to do is, in case they could run their water pump so they can flush their toilet. Maybe they want to have it just to run their deep freeze. Okay, that's a partial system, and a solar installer can do that. They can do a small system that can just back up some of your loads so that you can still turn on 1 or 2 lights in the hallway.
Well, that was basically my system.
You can still flush the toilet. Yeah.
It just did a few of the things.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time, you live off the grid.
That's right.
I mean, entirely. So it just depends on what you want. And like I said, if they get in contact with you,
yes,
you're willing to help them just do a components, explain how things work to them. And so if they want just like the system that I'm just putting in, it's 4 panels, a battery, and a generator, and it's just to run a holiday trailer.
Yeah.
And it's simple.
So I have many customers that just purchased a couple things, and I shipped it to them, or they came and picked it up. We explained it. I took pictures of it. I tried to take video of it. So I understand the components that's in there in case they want to expand. The pictures and the video is there. So I like to turn most systems on. Okay, so I can take, this charge controller, I can screw it onto a piece of plywood, the fuses and stuff are there, and we can place the battery down below. We can put an inverter beside it, so now they have household power with a plug-in, and then just an extension cord going out that we could plug into a generator, right? So a system like that, I can build it in my shop. I can power it up with a solar panel just leaning outside, hook it all up, take pictures, test it out, plug in a heat gun, yard light, right?
Yeah.
Prove that it works, take photos, take it back apart, put it in a wooden box, put it in a cardboard box. It gets driven across the country, comes to your cabin that's some remote area, or you're in the city, and you can hook it up and away you go. And it's simple. And because I saved, the parts and pieces you had, I saved the photos. If you want to expand that system, you and me can work together to understand, do you just need one more solar panel? Do you need another battery? What can we do to help, work with your goals and needs?
Just, like you said, it's just as simple of a system as to provide that you don't freeze to death.
Yeah. Just make life easier.
Yeah.
Because, we'll say, the water in your basement or your deep freeze, all you got to do, go to one of them big box stores, buy a generator, plug it in, run extension cord through the window, run across the house, plug in that pump to pump the water out of your basement, plug it into your deep freeze, and you're fine.
Yeah.
You're totally fine. Or borrow the generator the neighbor has, right? And everybody's happy. But if you're not there all the time, you're still in the big city, we'll call it, and a rainstorm went through, the power line went down, you could have your own little battery backup system. Or that cabin that you hopped on your snowmobile, you had days off, you went out across the ice, you got to your lake. Of course, like most of us, we all leave a little bit late and we get there and it's already dark. It's pretty nice to unlock that door, open it, flick the light switch, and everything comes to life. Yeah. So I've many systems like that also. It's just a small little system.
And
but
most of the systems that you do, you could start with a little tiny system and you can just keep adding on pieces as you can afford it.
Yes. Now, if we know that you're going to have a house and a shop, it wouldn't be good to start with a cabin system. It'd be good to start with a system that's large enough to run, the construction material. Whether you're going to make your own cement and you got that little cement mixer, or you've got your own air compressor for the nail gun, then you can start building on that system. Yes.
Okay, well, I think we have some questions from a few people, and we will go through them. And if anybody has any questions, please leave a message in chat or on Instagram or someplace like that, and we will try and answer it.
So we're kind of grabbing messages from different platforms, and I got one here, and he's asking kind of what is the difference between AGM or lithium? If I'm going to build a new property, should I go with lithium or should I go with AGM? It's always interesting. For one, just sitting here today, there's many different AGM batteries. AGM stands for Advanced Glass Mat, sorry. And what that means is maintenance free. Okay, so most of them you could tip them on their side, you could slide them in a cupboard. Most of them don't need any venting at all. Most of them.
But they are a lead acid battery.
Yes, they're heavy.
Just so you know that they are still a lead acid battery. They can withstand some cold weather if they're drained down, to a low voltage. They can freeze and break, also. And then he says AGM or lithium. Now, once again, there's many different styles of lithium. Most lithium can withstand freezing, meaning 30 below won't bother that battery. Now, most lithiums, pretty much all of them, we cannot charge that battery when it's cold. So it needs to be brought up to a 0, maybe a +5 temperature, and then we can charge it. Now, that being said, I have a 48-volt lithium off-grid solar system in northern Saskatchewan. Okay, so it's honestly an island lake kind of thing. And that battery, for ease of explaining it, is more or less underground. Okay, so it's a couple feet underground, kind of this little bunker style, we'll call it. So it's below the frost line.
It's not. The frost is there. And it did become a bit of an issue. So we have a heat pad down there that runs off the solar panel, runs off DC. So that system's monitored, which is really nice. So I can see it via satellite. I can see that most mornings that battery is sitting at +4, maybe +6. And as the sun shines, it brings it up to +7, maybe +10. Now, I know just a week ago, they had -26, -27 up there. And that cold started to soak into the ground. All right. So that heat pad was able to keep that battery above, +4, +5. And that lithium battery is still working strong, working nice. And it's running communication at that property, and it's running a bunch of cameras and then some other proprietary stuff. So in a case like that, it's really nice. That lithium battery has a 10-year warranty and a 20 to 25-year design life. Now, that customer very easily could have gone to AGM. So let's explain that system. That lithium battery weighs 200 pounds. If it would have been AGM, it would have weighed 1,200 pounds. If it was AGM, let's say it would last 5 to 7 years. We put in lithium, warranty 10 years, design life 20 years plus. So shipping alone, we saved a lot of money on that project because of shipping. Now definitely the battery costs more. So when you look at it that way, it's close to a wash just in those two numbers. Except the lithium battery was designed for 20 years. The AGM would have been designed, we'll say, for 7. So we would have had, whether it would be 2.5 or 3 change outs in AGM, lithium wins just in that alone. And it's a small footprint. So that hole didn't need to be as big, and flying things in. Nobody wants to fly 1,000 pounds.
No. It's hard enough getting them to want to fly batteries in the first place.
Yeah, and let's just touch on a tiny thing there. Not all lithium were allowed to fly, and not all pilots will fly lithium. This was the owner of this project, and he did fly his own battery, I believe, or maybe he took and brought it out there to snowmobile. I'm not sure. Sometimes I don't ask the questions I don't need to know. So, and we kind of answered the second question there, that to me they kind of look to be the same. Are all lithium the same? No. Many of us have, we've all owned cell phones. Cell phones have had lithium batteries in them for years. I'm going to say that's probably the cheapest, junkiest lithium battery there is. It gets a little bit cold, it turns off. And they won't charge them.
They're lithium ion, most of them.
Yeah. It's an expensive phone. It's not an expensive battery, right? And it'd be fun to ask our customer, or our viewers, how many years does a cell phone last? How long? Their first complaint is either broken glass or it just doesn't hold a charge, right? So the lithium batteries that we'd use in your cabin.
Like the olden days, they no longer make it easy to change the batteries.
Yeah, not for me. No. So.
And one thing to mention is the batteries in a phone are a lot more prone to damage. If you damage most lithium batteries, if you damage them, like the ones for the off-grid, they're a little better protected. But those ones, they can be quite a fire damage.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a lot of people there that know that, they've had their phone, it's been happily working, and one day it's like, wow, this thing's getting really hot. So the battery management system in there, I know nothing about it, but there's no way that an off-grid cabin or an off-grid house, that those lithium batteries can be allowed to do that. So there's a lot of safeties that goes into, building an off-grid system with lithium batteries. Okay, and I only deal with lithium batteries for an off-grid house that are approved, that are safetied, whether that's ULC or CSA. There's a bunch of other.
In case people don't know that stands for CSA is Canadian Standards Association, and ULC is Underwriter Laboratories Canada.
And there's a bunch of other little numbers and letters under there, and really we'll leave that for another show. But it's good to have equipment that the manufacturer stands behind it, that the warranty stands behind it, that you can still get insurance for your property because it's an approved system. Okay. The other question I got, and it's interesting, we're talking lots about batteries here. The other question is, if I'm building my cabin, should I put it together on a 12-volt system, 24 or 48-volt battery system, I guess is what he meant. That's always interesting. I have many cabins that's 12-volt, like your holiday trailer. Your holiday trailer is a 12-volt system. And it's
my system has always been 12-volt, because you can get 12-volt things everywhere. That's an added advantage.
And that's probably where off-grid really started from, and that's kind of a sad thing. So somebody wants to build their own off-grid system, and they honestly took things out of a holiday trailer and they put them into a house, and then they started to expand and build on it. Next thing you know, they got a water pump and an angle grinder and these various things, an incubator for chickens, right?
Yeah, I used to have a 12-volt incubator.
So in that they start to overtax the 12-volt system. 12-volt is a very good system. There's lots of them out there. The problem that I start to have is it's not really commercial, meaning if all of a sudden your hobby is you want to have a MIG welder, or you want to run an air compressor because you're a woodworking shop and you want to run a table saw. We've done it on 12 volts. You got to get very creative. It's not easy because you're paralleling a lot of wires. The smaller the voltage, the thicker the wire. That's the problem. So most of all of my, larger cabins, my houses, camps, commercial properties are all 48-volt battery system, which mean then the wiring sizes is smaller from batteries to the inverter. And the inverter is what's taking battery power and making
And
household
you're
power.
not limited with the ease of getting step-down converters. You're not limited anyways. You can still do all of that 12-volt stuff you want to
Yes.
do.
Yes. I have a property that's 48 volt that has some 12 volt lighting that was put in many years ago. So we put down a step down in there, and it's stepping 48 volts DC down to 12 volts and powering all, a bunch of their, they have interesting, neat lights and stuff in their property that's 12 volt. Yeah. Now, that being said, let's pretend we have a customer that's already built their whole property on 12 volt. And they've done the expense, they've got it, and they go, hey, I need 120, 240 power. Yes, we can do it with 12 volts. Not easy, but we can do it. And then say you got another customer and they go, I want three-phase power. I want 120, 208 power, three-phase. I can do that on 12 volts. It's crazy. It'd be way nicer to do it on 48, but yes, I can do it on 12 volt.
Well, it also used to be in the olden days. Well, when I say the olden days, I'm talking a couple of years. That 110 lighting, so like LED lighting, compared to 12 volt LED lighting, it was so much more expensive for 110 lighting than it was for 12. So that's why a lot of people went with that. But now it's the reverse. The light bulbs in your house, and they're so energy efficient that even with the conversion, the inverting of the power, it's still way more efficient to run normal AC lighting than it is to run DC lighting, because with your difference in your price of your light bulbs, 12 volt light bulb is probably 5 times the price of a.
Yeah, it is. And, there still is reasons that, some off-grid properties have 12 volt lighting, but I really want people to look and understand it's way better off to build a whole house, a whole property that's 120 voltage, normal household wiring, 120, 240. All of the lights are normal lights you'd buy at Rona or big box store, Home Depot, whatever. It's so much nicer that the house is wired normal, like your one in the city is. It's by far the best. And actually, that comes to my next question. I want my new home to be fully off-grid, but I don't want to lose my lifestyle. And I was told that I can't do that. And then he says, do you think I can live my normal lifestyle and power my car? It doesn't say what his car is. Yes. Solar systems can grow to power, I'm going to use the word everything. It's just going to cost. Okay, so say it's a Tesla car, say it's a Chevy Volt, I don't know. So Kevin, in that, yes, I don't know how much time you're going to allow me, if you plug your car into your house. In a system like that, I would like to take and have it so when the sun is shining and the batteries are full, it would turn the car charger on. And we would only eat the batteries down to a certain level. And what I mean by that is, as soon as the batteries get pulled down, let's say 60%, it would then turn the car charger off, so that I know there's enough power left to power your house through the night for tomorrow when the sun comes back up. Then we can charge your car again. So I don't know, how far your property is from the city or what your daily drive is. In a case like that, if we can fully charge your batteries from the sun, extra power that we have, and when I said batteries, I meant your house batteries. So once your house is full, then it would turn on that system that would then allow your car charger to turn on and fully charge it. Now, if that's an issue, we can add more solar, we can add more batteries so that your property could. Now understand, if it's snowing and blowing and there's no sunshine, it's going to be generator. We're always offsetting sunshine for generator runtime, right? Now, I think Kevin's big question was, can I live an off-grid lifestyle just without giving up any of my, nice things in life? Yes.
Basically, can you live like you're on grid but be off grid?
Yes. So, you can still have your hot tub, you can still have your air conditioning. We just got to find ways, to allow that to happen, to let it work and let it work nicely. in a way that you understand it, that I understand it, and that it all makes sense. I'll say, for instance, okay.
I would say the one big difference is that you have to be conscious of your loads a lot more
Yes.
than when you just plug into the wall and go. But it doesn't mean you can't run those loads. You just have to plan for them.
So I have a hot tub, okay, because everybody told me I couldn't. So my hot tub, I have a plate heat exchanger. So my propane hot water heater in my basement, that supplies hot water for dishes and laundry. Okay, that plate heat exchanger is robbing water from there, going through the exchanger, and then heating the hot tub. So on yucky, cloudy days, my hot tub is heated by propane.
And when you have your cogeneration system running,
yeah,
it also helps heat that.
Absolutely. Now, I have the electric thermostat set a little bit warmer than I should. So today when the sun is shining, okay, my batteries are full, it allows the electric portion to turn on the hot tub, and it's going to bring that up to a couple degrees warmer than it should be. So tonight when I want to go in my hot tub at 9 p.m., it's cooled down a little bit and it's just the right temperature. So it's, stored energy is not only in a battery. Sometimes stored energy is thermal, or even stored energy is on a sunny day, allowing the water pump to pump water, to water the apple trees, to water the strawberries. Okay?
It can be almost anything. Like,
yeah,
if you wanted to, you could take that dump load and turn it into hydrogen if you wanted to. There's many things you can do with it.
Right, and I've never done that. And I'm sure that there's customers out there that can explain that to us that have been doing it for years, and that'd be really interesting.
Well, I have produced hydrogen, but I'd rather let an expert talk about it. But I have done it. It can be done.
Absolutely. Well, the truth is we've all made hydrogen. And we've made hydrogen because that's what a lead acid battery is in your vehicle. When it's charging, it's making hydrogen. Now, let's talk about that for just a second. Under the old protocol, we had lead acid batteries in our house or in our basement for them off-grid customers. And they should have a wooden box around it and ventilation so that hydrogen can get outside.
And you don't get a buildup of it.
Right, because it's not only hydrogen. It's got acid, yucky stuff in it that wants to wreck everything too. And in a lithium battery, I can put it in the cupboard below your, in your closet, right? It's safe.
Doesn't have any off-gas.
It has no off-gassing. Yeah. In fact, it'd be best if it was in a secure location, same as your lead acid, so that your son or the neighbor kid doesn't sit a toy on it and cause something bad to happen.
Yeah.
And no maintenance on lithium. Like, there's no cleaning, there's no adding water, open it once in a while just to make sure that, a mouse or a bird didn't build a nest there.
And you can definitely start with the lead acid and work your way. I know that you've done lots of upgrades.
Yeah.
But you can start on, and I know you install lead acid seeds now.
Yeah. I think this year I've only installed one lead acid system. I think last year I did 2 or 3. The rest were all lithium. And lots of them in very remote areas, and quite a few change-ups too, where the customer took their lead acid out because they were old and tired, and then installed new lithium system. Yeah. And in that, actually, I really want to, put an advertisement or a plug out for my own company. Camo Solar is on Instagram, just hashtag Camo Solar. A lot of my projects are there with systems and properties that I've done in different locations and areas. And there's a lot of knowledge there from that I've learned from the customer and stuff too.
And here on YouTube, your Camo Solar Inc.
Yes.
If you just search for Camo Solar, it brings up some sort of racing thing or something like that. But Camo Solar Inc. is what you need to search for on YouTube. And when I post this, the feed to this back up, I will actually put links in there for it. Well, I think we've covered a lot in this episode.
I don't see any other questions that came in.
No, I don't see any more. Oh, what about wave rectifiers for the stove, I mean? I don't know anything about wave rectifiers. Are they talking about Peltiers?
don't know.
I don't know what a wave rectifier is. I'm sorry.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, but I'm visiting Peltiers when they say that. I'd have to have a little bit more information.
Huh.
I'm sorry we can't answer that. Maybe we'll have to do some research. And like I said, Frank will be back in about a month, and maybe we'll do some research on wave rectifiers, and maybe we'll have an answer and know what they are.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute. You know, whether it's 30 days from now or whatever that date is, we'll have to figure out.
Well, it's whenever you have time in your schedule.
We can get back together again. You know, you the audience, what do you want us to talk about? What projects or stuff do you want to talk about? You know, I've done lithium batteries and bifacial solar panels. We can, you know, I've done a few YouTubes on the difference between bifacial and just a normal solar panel. How much is made? I actually did one that was totally crazy. I took 2 bifacial solar panels, laid them on my lawn, one face up and one face down, and tracked them both to see how much energy was produced on them. There's things like that, you know, the MPPT solar charge controller, you know, the older style before that, different inverter manufacturers, sine wave, modified sine, you know, and different generators, and some of the things that the customers have really liked and have worked well for them.
Well, we will definitely discuss all that stuff. Let's touch on one thing that you just brought up for just 2 seconds, and that's modified sine to true sine. There's a lot of misconception. If you have an old modified sine and a new modified sine, you might as well have 3 different categories: true sine, new modified sine, and old modified sine.
Yeah. I got to be careful I'm not too biased on that. Because
I know you're biased on that.
Because I know there's definitely some manufacturers that's producing modified
that are almost have a true sine wave, but not quite.
Let's say this a different way so I don't get into too big of a discussion. I enjoy selling pure sine wave inverters from very large companies that build good equipment, that I understand how their warranty works, I know how their tech support works, and I also know that power is identical to your power that you would get from your city. You know,
actually, in some ways it's probably cleaner.
Yes, because it doesn't have a lot of harmonics and other stuff in it. Absolutely. So I do not like to sell anything less than perfectly pure sine wave household power. Okay. Some customers have other things, and I've worked on them. I've helped hook them up, or made them safe by grounding your fuses or breakers. But one problem, so pure sine wave is the same as the city household power, absolutely, and we just don't have issues then. We don't have fuzzy buzzing sound when you're on your TV.
We'll do one of our episodes on sine wave, because in order to understand exactly what it is, you need to understand how sine wave works and how a square wave is different than a true wave.
Yeah, in some cases it's damaging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially to electronics and things like that, it can be.
Yeah, a lot of cordless drills. They do not like that. Their charger does not like.
If they're brushless, yes.
Yeah. No, but like in the charging.
Oh, in the charging.
In the charging of that, of that cordless tool battery. Yeah. So, well, my goodness sake, I'm, really happy to, that you called me in here, and I'm sure that we'll get a few good questions for the future. We can put some things together. It'll be interesting to see, how that all unfolds.
Well, it's been very good to have you here as well. And once again, for anybody that's listening, check Frank's webpage out at camelsolar.com. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, and above all, share it with others, and subscribe, and hit the link, the little notification bell, which means that you will get notified when something new is coming out. And I'm trying to line up some good guests, and hopefully next week I will have a good guest for you. And but until then, everybody take good care of themselves and hope the homestead is doing good.